All right, here we go. So now we're ready to go. And I'm happy to talk to you today about what we're doing with cross-collaboration platform reality that we're all living in, where we have, Zoom out there, we have WebEx, we have Microsoft Teams, obviously in a huge way. We have, Google Meet. And so what I just wanted to talk about a little bit was what Cisco's doing to sort of help make that an easier, a better experience for you all. So we have devices that can be deployed as both native MTR, Microsoft Team Room devices, giving you that true native Microsoft experience, or they can be deployed as Cisco devices and have full access to every platform. We support all of them, Zoom, Microsoft, WebEx, Google Meet, all of them. So we're standards based. We have the ability to meet all of your needs on the Cisco side, but we give you that flexibility without charge that you can deploy the devices in whatever manner makes the most sense to you. So we obviously can support any size room, a personal device, a little huddle space, a large lecture hall. All of those, we have a Microsoft Team Room approved or Cisco native device for that need. And here's just some of the devices so you can kind of see what we're doing with conference room devices. We have multi-camera capabilities. We have all AI integrated switching that makes that sort of seamless, like almost like a newsroom where you're switching to different speakers as they're talking. So a really nice polished experience no matter what the size of the room. And if you need something more all-in-one, we've got, boards that have touch screens. You can do the Microsoft Teams whiteboarding and the native MTR on all of these devices, including our personal devices, like the Desk Pro. So the other thing we can do right now as well with Microsoft Team Room, this is a new thing, is we can do outside displays. So if you have a room and you want to do booking or scheduling, see if the room's being used, we have all of that capability built into our system, ready to go, native Microsoft or Cisco. And then of course, you need headphones, headsets, webcams, all of those things we have ready to go, certified for Microsoft Teams and everything else. One of the great things about what Cisco's doing by leveraging different technologies, so if you've got like, Cisco wireless, you've got Cisco networking, you've got Cisco collaboration, we can take all of those things together and we can give you an experience where we map out your entire building. You can see what rooms are available, what rooms are in use, what the capacity is for each room. You can book them directly from this site and you can get directions how to get there when you get on site. So it's an all-in-one tool that's really, really inexpensive and super powerful and helps to really leverage the power of, Cisco's platform. The last thing that I'm going to mention before I get into just a little bit of control of stuff is we have the ability with Microsoft Teams, with Google Meet, with any of the other platforms, if you're using our devices to connect in, we have the ability to give you visibility into the network side, the device side, what's happening, was there a drop, what kind of, are they on wireless, are they on wired, what's the IP scheme, like knowing what networks, all of that stuff is available to you. And not only the local side, but the internet side. So as you're traversing networks, maybe it's a home network, right? So many hybrid workers these days. Where's the issue? Is it their ISP? Is it a hop down the road? Is it at the far end? We have the ability with Thousand Eyes to give you that full, source to destination, pathway, and visibility in real time. So one quick thing here, I know we're running a little behind. I'm going to run through this quick, but you have the option of deploying these devices, like we said in the beginning, as Microsoft Team Room devices or Cisco devices. And what I wanted to just talk about a little bit, why would you choose one versus the other? So basically, you can deploy our devices as MTR only, meaning you're using only the Microsoft portal. And that does give you some tools. But with Cisco, we give you a really powerful tool to bulk manage lots of devices very easily. So here you can see we've got a list of what things you get with dual registration when you have a device that's registered with Microsoft and Cisco. You can see that one of the things I love the most is remote access. So being able to go into the device as an IT professional, supporting your users without having to be there in person is massively helpful. And you're not going to get that with the native MTR experience. But with Cisco, with our registration, the dual registration, you get the ability to do all kinds of remote analytics, troubleshooting, and then access as well. Onboarding, like how hard is it to deploy these devices? It's very, very easy. I'd say it's just like you get a new TV, right? First thing you do is you log into Netflix, you got to scan the QR code, and then you log in, boom, and you're good to go. You put Disney Plus on there, boom, you're good to go. Ours is very simple. You turn the thing on, it says, what do you want to do? Cisco or MTR? Just choose that way. It walks you through it. There's activation codes, super simple. And just for all the geeks here that are going to be watching this, here's exactly what it looks like when you run MTR on our Cisco devices. We are the operating system of the device, even though it's MTR, and there is a containerized version of MTR that runs on top of that. So just for anyone who's curious, all you geeks out there, this is how it actually works. And I'm just trying to get through this really quick. I apologize, guys, but one new thing we have is being able to test for reverb with your devices. So audio integrity is so important in a conference room. If it's echoey, if it's noisy, if it's bad audio quality, no one's going to want to use the room and they're going to be complaining nonstop. We give you the native tools to make sure that as you deploy these devices, it gives you that best audio experience, best video experience. And this is one of the ways that we do it. So we obviously have a nice AI assistant as well that helps you. So you can use like natural language to ask Control Hub, like,
Hey, Mike, quick
yes.
question. Sorry. Are slides being shared? If so, we don't see them on the webinar.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Of course.
So there we go. So now we are sharing slides, and I apologize for that. But you didn't miss much because the real star of the show here is Ben. And, I hope that you got some value out of the little overview that I gave, but really I wanted to have as much time as possible for Ben to do a real-time demo of what we do with troubleshooting analytics and visibility with this cross-platform environment. Thank you all. And here's Ben.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayo. Really appreciate it. And let me just get oriented here on the presentation. Let's see here. I want to stop sharing the screen for just a second. I'm not seeing the control anywhere.
It's up at the top, I think, on the second. So you gotta go to the right.
Oh, I see. I see how we are. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right, super. Thanks, everybody. So sorry about that. Just getting oriented here. Ben Lewis here. I am the Collaboration SE. I work very closely with Mike Mayo. And as he described, I'm going to be doing some live demo of everything that Mike described. And I'm really excited to show this to you today. What I think is really notable before I dive in is that I'm actually doing this on Yuli's PC. If I was an admin, I have the ability to get access to the administrative controls and capabilities for our WebEx platform from anywhere, right? So it's available at admin.webex.com. It's what we call Control Hub, and it's really an entirely different approach from the old days where you maybe needed to have physical access to a server to do any troubleshooting. And there was a lot of steps involved in diagnosing what an issue with a meeting or a call or a conference was. So this is all about ease of management, accessibility for the folks that need to manage these things, and just general ease of use that I think everyone should be pretty pleased to see. Now, can I get a check that everyone is seeing my screen share?
We can see Control Hub. Yep.
Very good. Okay, super. So there's a couple areas that I'm going to focus on here. First thing, over here on the left, you'll see a monitoring tab, and I'm hovering over it now. And what's selected right now is the analytics section. So The analytics section is a rear looking function, right? So it's not live troubleshooting, but it gives you the ability to set a time frame for up to a year where you can see everything that's been happening in your organization. So the first one is my dashboard, which is customizable. So I can put the views that I want to see in this dashboard. In this case, I customized it to show things like total call legs, which locations in my organization, excuse me, are making calls. I also wanted to see device usage. So I invested in Cisco room and desk and board devices, and I want to see how are they being utilized in my organization, in my conference rooms. So we can get a quick view of this daily, weekly, monthly utilization right here in our organization. That gives us a very clear picture. Now, I'll note this is a sandbox that doesn't have a ton of devices. In a production organization, this would be there'll be a lot more activity. This is purely a sandbox that I use for demos. So there's fewer devices in there than there would normally be. I want to see what is the overall quality trend inside my calling organization. What's the quality trend with video? So I can put all this information right at my fingertips when I first log in. And then I can also drill down into it. Again, for any time frame that I'm interested in, so any interval that I'm interested in this case, I'm looking at the last 30 days of calling in my organization. So we get information about the total number of call legs, number of calls that are of good quality. And what's interesting, it does also define calls which are of poor quality. That metric is sort of set. So if we have jitter above 150, packet loss above 5%, or latency above 400 milliseconds, it'll define it as poor quality. I can tell you that with our cloud calling product, we rarely have actual audio problems, even though some of these metrics may be above the thresholds. So the point of all that is that while we may see something listed as a poor quality call, it may not have actually been poor quality for those end users. But it does indicate to us, hey, there was some network issues potentially for these calls. And we can even drill into the poor quality calls. So you see, I just clicked here on the poor and I hit apply. It's going to revise all the other metrics to show me those specific calls. Then I can look for trends, right? So, okay, I had some poor quality calls at 2 different locations, right? But maybe I have a dozen locations and there was no poor quality calls there. So I'd want to zero in on these. It was all in the US. If you had multi-country, you'd be able to zero it down by country. You get the idea. We can look at the types of media that may have had poor quality. The call legs, was it Ethernet or Wi-Fi? Which ISP was used? Did we use ICE optimization? So in this case, we have sort of a mixed bag. This isn't telling me much for the calls with no optimization, and the ones with ICE, we had poor quality on both. But you can see, if you put yourself in the shoes of someone who has to administer a calling environment, that this is going to guide you into troubleshooting where you may have potential ongoing issues at a location or with a particular network segment or an ISP or a country. All this data is readily available. So let's just zap out of the poor quality and go back to all calls. And you notice when I do that, it gives me the data for everything. So I had just zeroed in on one particular type of call. I can zero in on anything inside these dashboards. So if I want to zero in on just Oracle Park and see what's happening there, I can click there and the same thing will happen. It'll revise all the data for just that location. So really, really good high-level overview of your calling environment for any time interval that you want. And I want to note that this works both for WebEx calling as well as for Cisco Unified Communications Manager, CUCM. So if we turn on something called CCUC, Cisco Unified, Cisco Cloud Connected UC, we'll have the same data for CUCM. There's no cost for that. And all you have to do is enable effectively a link between CUCM and Control Hub, and you'll get this same data for CUCM. So it's some ROI on a product you may have had for quite a long time, where you can now get additional visibility into that environment. So anyone listening who has CUCM and doesn't have this turned on, please reach out to Mike and I. Turning on CCUC is maybe an hour's work, and it's free. There's no additional cost, and it gives you a lot more visibility. So just a quick plug for CCUC. If you don't have it, definitely recommend that you turn it on. So that was media quality. Let's take a look at the other big one, which is our detailed call history. And this one is probably the kind of metrics that you're going to be asked more often than not. What are the total calls happening in my organization? Which locations are busiest? What percentage are internal versus external? So this data, just as before, is all readily available. We can again sort on any given thing. So if we want national versus inbound, we can just see those types of calls by clicking in. If I want to just look at Oracle Park, I can do that. We get a lot of great data here. What are the total calls daily? What's the distribution of calls throughout the day? If we're doing network planning around our calling workload, we'll want to build for peak utilization, right? And in the past, it might be hard to find that data. It's very, very easy now with analytics being so readily available and so easy to find. We have additional analytics available around other functions within WebEx calling, like call queues, around our auto attendants and our hunt groups. So if you have hunt groups set up, maybe you call them a call handler as opposed to an auto attendant, but we can get metrics on how many calls are hitting those auto attendants, where they're being routed in the hunt groups. So we have an extensive amount of data at your fingertips, and as I'm demonstrating today, accessible from anywhere. So I'm not even on my own workstation right now, and I can get to all this. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them into the chat of the webinar, and we'll also have time at the end where we can come back and look at anything that we've talked about and answer any questions that you may have. So I just want to say, please don't hesitate to ask any questions that you have. We eagerly await any input, and I much prefer the Q&A as an engineer to just me speaking. So look forward to the questions. We have another tab here for devices. So that was all pertaining to calling, like think your phones, your soft phone client, but we also have an extensive array of conference room and area-based devices. Our room series devices that Mike showed you, our desk series and board series, data about them is all going to be captured here as well. So this one is really important because these rooms are usually expensive. They're high value. We have a lot of people using them. We have them doing a variety of different meeting types in these rooms. So we'll want to get data around how they're being used. Right? As you can see here, we've got data broken down by how was this device used? Was it a call? Was it a pass-through where they just used the audio video of the device's speakers? Was the local display displaying content from a wired connection? So we have a variety of data here. Again, this is from my sandbox, and I actually use a Desk Pro in this sandbox as my secondary display, and I use its speaker and mic quite often. So you're seeing a ton of data talking about USP pass-through and local display, and that's me leveraging it for that. There's calls on the right is a lot of test calls I was doing recently with that device. But again, this is a sandbox, so the data in here is a little skewed to possibly some use cases you would not see in production. We get total hours of meetings that occur. It's going to capture the same information for Teams and Zoom meetings as well as Google Meetings if you have those. We'll have the meeting services graphed out so we can see when they're being used, and we're seeing the trends over time of which meeting types are being used the most, as our devices are meeting platform agnostic, right? WebEx devices can join Teams meetings, they can join Zoom meetings, they can join Google Meetings, and of course, they do best, I think, with WebEx meetings, but equal weight given to all in that platform agnostic device paradigm. Let's take a quick look at the quality tab as well. So we're going to have a significant amount of data here showing what was happening from a audio video quality on those devices. A lot of the same ideas as I already talked about with calling, so I'm not going to go through of all this. But in any case, if you have a device that is having ongoing problems, it's going to show up here. You're going to be able to track any consistent issues in your environment and get a very clear idea of where they're happening. And as we'll see in just a moment, why they are happening. Last thing I'll note, and this is possibly one of my favorite things, is, got it, workspaces. So think of a workspace as a container where the devices sit. So it's going to give us information around occupancy for all of our workspaces with a Cisco device in it, because the Cisco devices have people detection available to be turned on or off. But if it's on, it'll detect the number of people in a given workspace and track it here. So we can see the main location that has people in it is Chase Center in my sandbox, but it gives us a lot of information around occupancy and what types of workspaces are being occupied the most. So hopefully you get a sense here that there is a lot of information available to you around the devices that you have deployed, much in the way that calling is, and that it's available anywhere. So this, you may look at this and say, oh, that's nice. I mean, I probably can get it elsewhere. But let me just assure you that it is not so easy to get this information in other systems. So what we have available within Control Hub for our cloud registered and prem registered with Edge Connect devices is far and away the best I've ever seen. Last one I'll touch on is that we do have some sustainability information here. I know many of our customers have a sustainability office and a department. And so while the typical user isn't too concerned with this, there's significant information here that your sustainability office will be very interested in, including talking about potential savings by reducing carbon emissions and electricity usage. So that information is in here as well. Again, questions, feel free to pop them into the chat or of the webinar, and we'll certainly take everyone off mute at the end to ask those questions. So let's get into my favorite section here. This is the troubleshooting section. And in here, we're going to be able to drill into specific calls and meetings and get a wealth of information about it. So I'm going to just, first thing I'll do is just pop in and take a look at some of the devices that I know are registered here. I'm going to select this one called Ben Lewis. And what this is going to do, and this pulls information both in real time. So if this device is in an actual meeting at the moment, it will pull information about that meeting. But if it's not in a meeting, it will pull historical information about it. So you notice that I get a nice little overview here of the device itself. I can see what software build it's on, its MAC address, information about SIP, as well as its location and address. If it has any issues, that'll be displayed here. I know this particular one displays this because I've got multiple devices with ultrasound that are too close. So the issue will say that you have interference with ultrasound. Typically, we don't have two devices next to each other, but we can always turn down the volume of the ultrasound and eliminate that issue. But just a heads up as to why that was appearing. Now we're also going to see all the different meetings and calls that this device was in. And you can see here under service, I have a phone icon next to the WebEx icon. That's going to be a call placed over the WebEx infrastructure. I have SIP calls. So if it's a SIP call, that'll be displayed. And I have actual meetings displayed as well. So in this case, it was a WebEx meeting. And this is a live demo. And I'm going to just hop into some of these meetings and we're going to look at what we can see in all of them and talk about it. So I'm not sure exactly what's going to be displayed for any of these. So that's the beauty of live demo. We have to, show the real stuff, which is what we want. So in this case, I had two devices in the meeting. This green bar is going to indicate that we had good network metrics throughout. So it's kind of boring. It's not as interesting, I think, as when we see yellow or red. But we can always hover over this line at any point during the meeting, see what the network metrics were for that given device. and as we can see, they're pretty similar. It's all going to be green. We get extensive information about the call itself. So if we have some intractable issue that we cannot figure out here from troubleshooting, which does occur, not very often, but it does occur, this is going to give us the data we would need if we were to escalate this to attack case. So quick, easy. Now I have all the information I need when I want to pass this along to someone else to troubleshoot. It's all available in one place. Now that's not necessarily going to happen very often, as you will see, but just know that it is available. Now I can pop through these other tabs. That was metrics for audio. Here's metrics for video. If we did any content share, which we did not, there would be a purple line here. If we did, it would be displayed. And then the details tab is going to give me a whole bunch of detail. Oh, not familiar with this laptop, and I just hit the back button. Let me just pop right back. Hold on one second. Yuli uses the reverse scroll direction on his trackpad, and I use the natural. So I'm struggling a little bit. So the detail section is going to give us a high degree of details about all of the devices that are in there. And what's probably coolest, I think, is that when I drill into a given device, it's going to give me an extensive amount of data around that particular device's experience. So say you are someone who manages IT or who is an end user point of contact for problems, and they say, hey, I had a call in room 204 and the video kept cutting in and out. And it was unacceptable. It's bad. It didn't like it. We'll bring that exact call up. We'll bring up the video codec. And now we're here and we are looking directly at the timeline of everything that happened in this call. And this is an immensely boring call. I need to find another one that had problems because these lines are all flat and really good. So this blue line you see here would be bouncing all over the place if latency had varied, right? It was at basically a flat 16 milliseconds the entire time. And we're going to jump into a few other calls, so we'll be able to see other calls where it's a little more variable. I told you it's live demo, so I picked a call where everything was just wonderful, which isn't exactly what I wanted. Now, in the title of this presentation was ThousandEyes. And ThousandEyes is an incredible service that Cisco offers. And it's baked right into Control Hub. So ThousandEyes does many, many things. But one of the really cool things I like with regard to our troubleshooting capabilities is that it is going to give us highly detailed network path information. And so as you can see here, I have each hop on my network path throughout my home network all the way out to the network edge. And it's going to give me a detailed amount of information about that path. So you can see where it switches from my ISP to Sonic being my ISP and WebEx Communications being its ultimate destination. I'm getting very detailed information about each step in the network path. Now, if I have time, I will launch the ThousandEyes dashboard. Because I'm on Yuli's machine, I need to make sure I can log into it. So I'll circle back to that at the end. But we can also launch the ThousandEyes dashboard and get these incredible visualizations of the network path. We can go over each leg. So think of it this way, troubleshooting without ThousandEyes is going to provide you a very detailed, high-level overview of the network conditions for all of the various media types in your meeting. The ThousandEyes integration is going to open that network path up and let you drill into each separate hop on the network, which, as you know, if you're troubleshooting network issues, is 3/4 of the battle. If you can isolate where in the network path the issue is occurring, you are 7 steps ahead of where you'd be just knowing that there's a network issue. So for anyone who's troubleshooting calls, devices, and meetings, the ability to get super granular with that network path is going to be a huge benefit. It's all built right in. Okay, so if you have ThousandEyes, if you have the licenses for agents, it's a snap to turn it on in Control Hub, enable it for your devices and users, and then be able to capture this information along with the rest of the troubleshooting. So let's pop back. I said we'd look at a few things. that was a WebEx calling based call. Let's look at this SIP call. I have no idea what this is going to show. But one-way call. We had some poor network conditions, which is great. So this is a one-way SIP call. It looks like a very brief call that was made. So this would be to a generic SIP endpoint, so not a registered SIP device that WebEx Cloud recognizes. So it's going to pull data about what it does see. And here we see latency started at 4,000. So there was a network issue in my homeland. And I believe what I was doing was double natting it between a switch and a router, and that the switch didn't support the double NAT. It was dropping a ton of packets. But we do see that variability in the path here for video and audio. We get data around which network it was on, codecs that were used, the video codecs that were used for compression. See somewhat more limited information in this SIP-based call. And we don't see too many SIP calls. So interesting to look at that. Last thing we'll look at is an actual WebEx meeting. Let's pop that guy open. And once we do that, we will see all the information about everything that occurred in that meeting. Now here we have Mike's Desk Pro, which is here in the room with us. And we'll be able to, physically go in and take a look at it for those in the room after this session. But it's interesting to note that it is here showing up in this particular call. Again, nice green lines, meaning we didn't have any significant issues. Oh, finally, we do see a little bit of bend where the media bit rate rose a little bit throughout the call. Latency started high and then settled down. I'm going to have to get an ISP with worse performance. Shout out to Sonic, they're great, because everything is so flat and good. So it does make for a harder demonstration when all the lines are flat. We can see here actually frame rate went up slightly throughout the call. So that's something. It's nominal, so it's well within tolerances, doesn't report as bad, but we can see where frame rate was at 30 frames per second. Might have started a little bit lower. Actually, higher is better. So it started off low, and then as it found the network path to be really good, it increased the frame rate, which is what WebEx meetings will do to ensure the best possible experience while being cognizant of the network conditions. So same story as before. This data is listed here, and we can look at it for all the devices in the meeting. So that's a look at, these were Desk Pros and room bars that we were looking at. Let's take a look at a phone. So I'm gonna pop open one of my phones here and see some of the calls that it has made. You may notice a slight lag. It is pulling this information in real time, so there's a very slight delay in it appearing on the screen. But we can see here all the calls that were made by this phone. I did place a call. The last one shows up as poor because I was in an office that did have some network challenges. It wasn't at my home network, so it's fun to take a look at that and see what it looks like. In this case, you will see, again, extensive information around where this call was placed, around the devices that were used for the call. And we can see right down to the actual ID of that specific call that was placed if you needed to raise an issue around it. Again, if we hover over the network path for these phones, you can see the issue was high jitter for user 2. Now, it wasn't so high that I noticed any audio issues, and user 2 was connected to a public Wi-Fi in a busy office. So there was probably a lot of radio cross traffic in that office, and likely that was the culprit. But again, if you're troubleshooting calls, this kind of information is going to be invaluable. Optimization. ICE, which is path optimization, and that will really save you a lot of bandwidth. So if you have two devices which are in the same subnet and are functionally nearby each other, rather than send the media out to the cloud and back, it's going to send that media locally, saving a lot of your outbound bandwidth. Signaling will still need to go external, but media traffic, which is the bulk of the bandwidth, will stay local. So and of course you can see here in the troubleshooting tab, the type of call it was. So let me try to find one that's not ICE. Find one, this is another one that's ICE. Again, live demo, folks. Just picking calls at random here. Let's see, I know I've got at least one in here that didn't use ICE. So one moment, please, while I find that. No? Still no luck. Here we go. So this was a call to the PSTN. Now you'll notice that I don't have the network data or the information around a PSTN call. And this would make a ton of sense when we're using the PSTN from our call control environment. We effectively hand off that media stream to the PSTN provider and say, here's their 10-digit number, route the call to it. We don't have visibility on that call routing across the PSTN. PSTN is really an early form of routing, and it's a way to connect disparate phone systems together. But we do have all the information that we can get around that call. So we have information about our end, right? And it's going to, again, pull information down to the audio codec that was used, ISP, where the call was placed. We'll get that really great network data. We can hover around there and get a sense for the average, in this case, 100 milliseconds, less than 2% packet loss, 11 milliseconds jitter, really good metrics for this particular call. So that concludes the troubleshooting section and the live demo section. I am available here and very happy if there are questions to drill into any of the examples I have shown. Right, so we will capture data around all these phone endpoints, our video device endpoints. If you are using WebEx meetings, we will also capture data around application join for meetings. And we also capture data around the WebEx app as a soft phone client as well. So pretty much if you're using Cisco calling, we cover soft phones and all the physical devices. For the rooms, we capture all those room devices and anything connected to it. It's really easy to work with, and it puts a ton of information right here at the fingertips of the folks that have to administer it. So I want to thank everybody for your time and look forward to your questions. I will be turning it back over to Yuli to bring us out. Thanks, everybody.
So we had, thank you. We had folks come in and out during the presentation. All right. Oh. Right here, the fingertips. Is there a way to unmute?
Yeah, I can unmute everyone, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, let's see if we can do that, if that's an option there. Yeah. Bryson, he's still here. See if he has any questions at all. Well, Bryson, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat and I'll read them out and we can get them answered that way. Okay. It's not looking like there are any, so yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and conclude. So thank you, Mike and Ben. Really appreciate the time. What we'll do is we'll share this recording with folks as well, and I'm sure you'll get some follow-up questions because I definitely found this very interesting. So really appreciate you taking the time to share this with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. That will then conclude the presentation. So thanks everyone for your time and see you next time.
All attendees are gone. Thanks, everyone.